Alrighty, hello everybody and welcome back to Oceania Long No Tournament 4th edition. We are wrapping up Saturday with our last match for this wonderful Saturday, and it's going to be another loser's bracket match. And honestly, this one's going to be a pretty good one. It is going to be Aero, also known as Manuel Chi, versus Shadow GM. And these two players both got swept by their opponents in the winner's bracket round of 64 last week. Manuel against Plana and Shadow against Minwoo. So both these players going to be fighting for the remainder of their tournament lives in that loser's bracket. As always, I am Maristani, and commentating along with me is going to be none other than Nightcore. How's it going?
Going all good, and you pretty much said it perfectly. Good match to end off our Saturday Shadow GM versus Aero. So very close to the seedings, but looking at those qualifier scores and last week's scores, definitely have a lot of differences between them. So I do think Aero is going to be more of that physical player, while I think Shadow GM is probably going to be capitalizing off some of those lighter picks, maybe to get off the accuracy. Looking by these protects, pretty textbook. Going to be Shadow GM going for Coordination 1. Aero going for Density 3 for their protects respectively.
Yeah, I think you are on the money with how Aero is going to perceive this match. I know did not perform the greatest on that early game long note gameplay. They do excel a lot better in that more density range where the LNs do pick up a bit more physical, and makes sense that they're knocking out Coordination 2. Interesting, the Wildcard 3 ban comes out from Shadow GM, maybe not wanting to play those more uncomfortable LN picks with a lot of those shields mixed in here and there. And Aero gonna opt for that first pick. Wouldn't be surprised if we immediately jump into some density. Maybe something like Density 1 could be a good opener for this match here.
Yeah, I would say any of the densities works, but you're right on the money with Density 1. Probably going to be going for a pick, but yeah, you might see Wildcard 3 might be an interesting ban from Shadow, but you have to remember, it was originally slotted as a density pick as well, but it just also has some of those coordination aspects, so I totally see why they go for that ban, but you're right on the money. Wildcard 1's... wait, is it Wildcard 1?
Oh,
yeah, Wildcard 1.
Interesting.
Okay.
Immediately going to jump into the original here. Don't think, thought, just feel. I mean, also that makes sense. That's probably our densest wildcard pick we have out of the three. Well, the two now, because Shadow GM did take out Virtual Paradise, which was wildcard 3. And Manuel saying probably the worst thing you could be saying, I didn't practice. That is not good.
Yikes. Well, if he's listening to the stream now, there's a speed core jump scare near the final quarters, so don't let that throw you off guard.
Oh, good luck to those who sight read. Never sight read, especially on a tournament as stacked as this, where the bare minimum to get in was like a 980k. Never come unprepared for matches like these. But here we go, underway with our first map here, Wildcard 1. Lots of very interesting bursts in these LNs fields. Lots of these shields as well mixed in. Very tricky to get down to a T if you're not careful enough. But Shadow, you're gonna pick him in early 200, but shouldn't really do much to our current score here, as Manuel does trade it back.
I think it's going to be one of those matchups where a 200 or 2 won't really put a dent into scoring. Just kind of seeing both these players kind of small bit rougher on the edges when it does come to that pure release accuracy. And combo is going to be the key, especially in a map like this where you're going to be picking up 200s constantly with a lot of those techie flam releases and scatters, which can be very tough to keep your accuracy on. Could potentially throw your combo off as well if you're not too careful.
Yeah, lots of these snappings changing at a rapid fire pace here. Well, and like I mentioned, these shields also being a farming point for 200s, and Shadow does pick up a couple there. And Manuel here, 9.62, getting roughly 2,000 points of lead in their favor as we slow down the map just a bit here. A little bit of a break before things immediately kick back up here, which more of these flams are present with a lot more of a coordination-based pattern with some flams mixed in here and there.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this. Shadow kind of strongly swallowed it and getting that drop as well at the halfway point. Actually, two, which if Aero keeps their consistency up through the back half, of course they still have to worry about the speed core jump scare, but if that doesn't throw them off, they have a pretty hefty lead for them going into the final third of the map.
Yeah, now having a little bit of insurance added to their already climbing score here, 10,000 points in Aero's favor. And the speed core section, like you mentioned, probably going to be a choking point for them since they haven't practiced, but who knows?
Yeah, and as we do get into the final quarter, you can see the density spiking up a small bit more. Not really too much, but here we go. I think both players are still holding on. Again, it's not really too much of a difficulty spike. This is definitely more of a map consistency, especially just looking at the map length. And I think with that pretty comfy lead that Aero has going into the final 100k of the map, I think it's safe to say that they've been able to take the first point. And I do believe that is going to be a breakpoint for them as well.
I believe that was Aero's pick, actually. So it won't be a breakpoint for them, but still an early first point off of Don't Think, Just Feel, and also a FC as well, 987 K here, and Shadow GM getting a very solid 200 count as well, only 7 behind Aero, and also not too bad in that ratio department. It's just that Aero was the better player when it came to that release factor, and even if those slider breaks weren't present, it would still go over to Aero. But with that now, Shadow does have their pick of the litter, and I wouldn't be surprised if they immediately jump into that coordination department. And whoa, gonna see Tech 1 actually.
Alright, Tech 1, I'm not really too sure what to think about this pick. It definitely shows a lot of those similarities compared to Wildcard 1, as in having a lot more of those LN flams and scatters. So, I'm not really too sure what to think of this for Shadow.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know how to feel about this pick, but maybe they know something that we don't.
Yeah, maybe they might just be more. Maybe they're probably trying to get Aero on the nerves. Of course, this is a long map bit. 3 minutes and 3 seconds, I do believe. And, you know, this is a bit more unique when it comes to a lot more of those snappings, as Padu says, CN mapping.
Yeah. And just waiting for our players to ready up here. Shadow looking to even things up here. And Aero looking to take the first breakpoint of this match here. And I'm actually interested to see how the tech maps go. I would say they possibly could benefit Shadow if it's not dense as like what we saw with Wildcard 1 or any of like the density picks. If it's a lot more slowed down and focused more on the release base, then I could definitely see Aero potentially lacking in accuracy, potentially compared to Shadow, but we're gonna have to see here.
And alright, we're still yet to kick off, but Aero dropping a 200 near the start, which, I mean, as I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the 1-200 isn't really going to be denting your score that much, and yet it's just really following the vocals. When they do get heavier, you're going to be seeing a lot more of those techie patterns. Again, the snapping is pretty simple from the start, so accuracy is going to be relatively high among both players.
Yeah, and a little bit of a release-based opening there, really getting Aero here in the long run. Although their accuracy isn't really suffering as what people had thought they would, still about a 0.3% difference between the two. Not the biggest margin, not at all, and I bet you things will close up just a bit more as Aero heading into the first break section of the map here, as they're still down at the 99.3 range, while Shadow 99.6 for them, with roughly 5,000 points in their favor.
So they don't really have that net yet, and that is something they will need to keep onto their combo. Like, Actually, difference is a bit more of a noticeable margin, but again, from the Ki, we've actually seen Aero kind of climb up a small bit. So, if anything is what I've learned, what we have seen with the first Ki, maybe things could change when we get into the back half. Of course, Shadow's not out the water yet, as here we are, the flowiness is still going to be getting kicked in. You're seeing a lot more of those little gaps that both are still holding on very well to.
Yeah, as we head into our final 6 of the map here, still a Shadow with that advantage, just in the sheer accuracy department. And I mean, more of these releases rating down. Aero picking up a lot of 200s in comparison to Shadow. And as the map wraps up here, Shadow is going to take this by quite the hefty amount, 6,000 points in their favor, despite both players holding on to that full combo. With just that release factor really got Aero in the long run in comparison to Shadow. And yeah, I feel like that 200 count really, yeah, even though it's not by much, that ratio also really explains itself. Shadow going to win off of their own pick here, and both players tied up at 1.
All right, so I guess now we have a gist of. I guess if you were watching those first 2 maps, you get a gist of what these 2 players are capable of. So Shadow having, of course, that better release coordination, and Aero, yep, again into density. So you've heard of Rise versus LM matchups. We have coordination versus density matchups now for OMLN. And Aero is going to be jumping straight into their protect, going to be density free, going to be the heaviest density, but the most simple when it does come to snappings.
A bit interesting they already opt for their protect this early on in the match. I thought maybe density 1 would be a better choice, just to like get your opponent's feel on how they think about these density maps instead of immediately going for your protect. But maybe that's also the map you probably feel the most comfortable with. Also, you have 2 other density maps to pick from, so hopefully not a misfire in favor of or not a misfire on Aero's part. And I mean, this map I think is probably one of the most coordination friendly maps as well when it comes to the sheer density. This is like, I believe, 220 BPM, so it's also quite fast as well.
You would be correct, and if you do know anything of Toph's style, you know he likes to put bursts inside of bursts, pretty much. Bursts inside density, so there's a lot you have to manage in this map. Like, you have a lot of those short LNs between some of those bursts as well. Even some trills inside of them as well, which can be very hard to focus on. But I think for the first quarter, actually still very similar, only by 0.808%.
Yeah, like you mentioned, if you're well familiar with Toph's mapping, which I definitely believe both of these 2 players would definitely be, especially in a tournament setting, they love to have those bursts in with these LNs here and very, very tight releases, which actually I think got Shadow and Aero here. Their accuracies are virtually tied. A difference of 87 points heading into this first break section. Aero having the lead just solely off of ratio. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going back and forth here. It is going to come down to this back half of the map here. Aero does find a couple of 300s on these releases, but not really going to matter as we are not in the big main section yet, as we are still building up to it. And here comes the big density part of this map right here. Lots of these short LNs, lots of these Trills, and Shadow going to pick up a break here. Aero now 8,000 points in their favor, as that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But there is still more map, but it's just, is there enough time?
I do not think there's enough time. I think this is what Aero was going for, maybe to catch out Shadow when the density took a climax, which they were not ready for. Despite the better 200 count as well, it's really just those misjudgments that butchered Shadow. Even without them, I think this would have came in very close, maybe by 2 digit score difference as well.
I mean, we did see the 89 point difference at the break section of this map, so it probably still would have been in favor of Aero, but like you said, very, very close amount. But with that, Shadow now up for their turn 2 pick. And I mean, seeing how Tech 1 went, they could opt for another Tech map. But I feel now's the time you start going and taking off these coordination maps here. You have 3 to pick from still. I don't know about your Protect this quick. I mean, it could make sense, but I'd say maybe Coordination 1. Actually, no, we're going to see Wildcard 2 come out. Okay.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't really like this pick from Shadow. Wildcard 2 I think is the most dense compared to... Wildcard 2 is the most dense compared to the other wildcards. And I would say on par with some of the density picks as well. So this is 202 BPM, so a bit less on the side of the speed. But you have a lot more of those broken jump streams and those density patterns that come bursts as well. So I'm not really too sure what I want to feel about this. This could just go either way. And if Shadow gets caught out, then it will pretty much be game over for this pick.
I mean, this is definitely one of the more coordination-heavy wildcard maps we have in this pool. It's pretty coordination-heavy as alongside with the releases as well. So potentially Shadow opting for, once again, a more release approach, because that's, I mean, we did see on Tech 1 that was Aero's weak suit there. They were struggling a lot on those more releases and trying to time those LNs. And maybe the same story could be written here as, yeah, you can see that unstable rate bar from Aero hitting a lot or releasing a lot more later than what they anticipated, and Shadow being a lot more centered in their unstable rate compared to Aero.
Yeah, looking at the first quarter, you can still see you were right on the money pretty much. You're seeing a lot of those kind of density coordination patterns that come with mostly quads, but it's really just how you release them at the end of the day. And you can definitely see that Aero, looking at their UR, they have shown to have a couple of more yellow spikes, kind of more scattered around compared to Shadow, where it was kind of more around the blue range. But we still have the second half of the map, where I think this is more of your consistency. I don't really think there's much density spikes in a map like this.
Yeah, it's really just your consistency now going to carry you throughout the rest of this map here, as it is a pretty close set score difference here, although it did rise up with Aero dropping, but Shadow actually going to pick up the first break, although actually it's a bit interesting that their accuracy is still ahead of Aero by quite a bit. Not by much, but it is still possible to strike back as long as they climb up their accuracy. They're already at the 400 combo cap, and there's a lot more of these releases raining down that could trip up Aero if they are not careful. Even just a bit of 200s could chip away at that lead. But right now, Aero sitting comfortably with roughly 3,000 points in their pocket of favor. But still, this map isn't over until it's over.
I think it's not really going to be enough for Shadow. Aero has to find a few 200s in this ending section. The density does spike up, which we do know that they thrive off a bit more. And Shadow's just gradually losing their accuracy, a bit more on the fatigue side, I would say. But with the map concluding, Aero is going to be doing it inside the first breakpoint. And this is what I was kind of saying earlier as well.
Yeah, taking the first breakpoint here, and oh, this one would have also been a very close match here if it wasn't for that slider break from Shadow. I think it would have went in Shadow's favor, but just by the tiniest of amounts, just off of that ratio alone, as Aero did get a way better ratio than Shadow, but then again, not by much, by roughly 82 300s or so. So that's not a wide difference, but 3 200s. And Aero gonna opt for Tech 2. Interesting. I don't know how to feel about this.
Tech 2 kind of follows a bit more the modern LN type stuff. And I would describe this as a wild card. That's what I would say anyways.
That would make sense.
And of course it does have some of that density and a lot of those free up patterns as well. Like, I guess the releases could catch out them, but I think when it does go to the density, I would totally see why Aero would go for a pick like this.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. But also, this map does have a bit of release factors. Not maybe as much as compared to Tech 1. It's a pretty short chart as well. I believe just under 2 minutes. So your mistakes are gonna matter a lot. And ooh, Manuel or Aero having a pretty bad start. They're already down in the 98 range as Shadow 99.6 just off of that opening alone. And Manuel or Aero was struggling a bit to reach up to 99, but they managed to do it. But still, that was a really rough beginning. And if Shadow doesn't give up anything in favor for Aero, then I mean that could have been the deciding factor right there. And if not, there's already a lot of these releases in hand, and we could see Aero hitting a lot earlier than what they anticipated.
Could potentially be from nerves, but anything could still happen. Of course, when you're looking at the first quarter, it's definitely a bit more on that release side, which is kind of be expected that Shadow does have the upper hand. But when we do get into our main key, I think things will be subject to change, getting into some more of those free no pattern coordination areas, but when we do pick up, I think it might be Aero's time to shine to try and get that fight back up. Again, Shadow is slightly losing accuracy as well.
Yeah, and as we head into the final half of this map here, lots more of these releases raining down. Aero gonna find a couple 200s here. And they have just been staying down at this low 99 range as these shields rain down, these releases. They're just, I feel like they're just like releasing them all at the same time instead of each individual note, and doing a bit too early as well. But Shadow, 99.5 for them, almost 7,000 points in their favor in the final quarter with this more coordination section here. Shadow hitting a bit late, but should not be much of a worry, even though that gap is closing just a tiny bit. Nothing really too much to worry about, I'd say.
Yeah, they definitely have that net on them, and I think, well, while they still can't afford a miss, they can definitely afford a good few 200s heading into the outro. And looking at it, I think with their consistency right now, I think nothing's really going to be bulging. They're going to be taking their second point. And correct me if I'm wrong, that is a breakpoint again.
Yes, that is a breakpoint in favor of Shadow. And yeah, you can see both players FCing. It's just Aero really struggled with those releases, picking up almost double on what Shadow got.
Yeah, and as I was kind of saying, again, I'm not really too sure I want to think of this pick from Aero, probably trying to bank off some of those density aspects, but the coordination was kind of too much for them to handle. But now, with that breakpoint again, and stuff back equalized, it's going to be Shadow going into their next pick, and it has to be one of the coordinations at this point, I would say.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. And yeah, we're going to see Coordination 1. Their Protect actually coming out here, which definitely makes the most sense. This is your prime opportunity to tie things up at 3.
Absolutely. And don't let this map fool you, it is 85 BPM, so, and it's also long. It's 3 minutes and 18 seconds long, as a matter of fact, so 200s are going to really matter in a pick like this.
Yes, definitely. And ooh, this is going to be interesting to see.
I think this is one of Shadow's best picks, just kind of looking from last week and the week before in Aero's performance on coordination. Kind of more of a weaker point compared to the other LN skill sets as well. So I would totally understand why Shadow would go for a pick like this. It's the least physical, as the most, well, LN oriented.
Yeah, for sure. And this map has also seen, alongside Wildcard 3, a lot of like a high ban rate. I've seen lots of players ban this map compared to some others here, or just avoiding it in full. But I feel this is Shadow's probably best part, or like best option to go for out of the three coordination picks we have. Mainly because you can see right now this opening release section here already catching up aero pretty badly. But then again, this map just started. Anything could happen.
Yeah, it was a few 200s on the side of aero, as you can kind of see those gradual act drops, but 200s are actually being traded back and forth by both these players. I think it's like 3 to 2 200s right now. But again, this is just a start in the map, and aero finding that 50 as well, going to be giving them that combo break. Not what you want in a pick like this.
Yeah, this is really taking a toll on aero, as now Shadow 13,000 points in their favor, and we're only in the past the first quarter, almost in the first third here. And aero 98.7, losing their 99, while Shadow is almost a full percentage ahead of them in this chart.
And yeah, especially when the vocals start to pick up, you're going to be seeing a lot more of that heavier column emphasis. And here we are, going to be seeing a lot more of those elongated LNs or some of those free note patterns as well. And I think both players are still, I think Shadow is still holding on very well. And aero still finding a lot of those earlier 200s in a section like this. At this point, with just Shadow's consistency, something fatal has to happen to them.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see something insane happen on the side of Shadow, like a keyboard disconnect, or even at this point, just a full disconnect from the lobby could do it as well. But honestly, the likeliness of that happening, I don't know. Those gamma rays are pretty tough out there.
Yeah, pretty much. And with the accuracy, aero taking a double drop as well on some of those LNs, releasing well too early.
No.
That's going to make the accuracy difference by a whole percent. So, yeah, you were saying it has to be something like a disconnect, or at this point, a ton of chain misses on the side of Shadow, like a whole hardware issue as well. But we saw the final area of the map, so anything can still happen, as always says. But heading into this final drop with not the max combo count is only going to be suffering your score, especially if you're still not able to keep up to the max.
Yeah, and as we head into the final eighth of this map here, I think it's pretty much set in stone here. Shadow, almost 60,000 points in their favor. Probably an insanely good pick to go off of here. Even if something were to happen, it would not matter, as Shadow, 99.5, 60,000 points in their favor, off of their protect. Gonna tie things up at 3 here, and aero going to drop at the end there. And yeah, very, very good choice for Shadow out of the 3 coordination picks that were left. Aero now up to the task to pick something to not give up a break points. And I think it's starting to get tricky now. I mean, aero still has the density maps up there. I think we'll definitely see a density map get picked here.
I would probably have to say it.
I would say there is not a world where aero does not pick a density map. Maybe density 1 could be the pick. That's what I'm gonna guess. I feel like that would be the one to go. Nope, density 2. Okay, but I was right though about a density map, and here we go.
So this is going to be aero's final pick for this match, and any of these densities could have worked, but I think maybe trying to bank off a bit of that technical aspect as well, because you have some of those broken jump stream and one-handed patterns as well. I guess if I was to describe it, it's probably going to be the most technical density, so maybe trying to catch up on the awkwardness for Shadow.
Yeah, for sure. And this map, fairly short, only 2 minutes and 12 seconds, so don't have much time to work with here. And it's going to be interesting to see how this one will play out. It was fairly close on Density 3. I think it was just that break that happened, though. And here we go, underway with Density 2. Gonna see how this one plays out for Aero and Shadow as well, because a breakpoint here could be absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. And we'll have to see, like, this map, like, you can already see with all those unique snappings, but Shadow finding that early drop. Aero at this point just needs to keep on their consistency, just a late start from Shadow and that small rushed effect, but still possible to catch up. But in a map that is 2 minutes and 12 seconds, you just don't have that room for error pretty much.
Yeah, and Shadow with that break early on, although they're climbing up fairly well, feels like the damage has already been done. Although this map has just begun, it's not entirely over yet, but I mean, Aero has been so consistent on these more dense LNs. Even when it comes to not really worrying about the release component, it's still something that they do specialize in. But and with this chorus now, Shadow is that accuracy is going up fairly fast, but there's a break there just to solidify things even more in this final half to go. And I mean, we're gonna have to see something catastrophic on the side of Aero right now. 14,000 points in their favor in this current moment. Final quarter left to go here. I mean, it's entirely possible Aero would just have to drop at least like 0.2% of accuracy, which a few misses could do, but they, like I said, they have been so consistent throughout this entire map. I don't think it's entirely possible, especially with now time running out here, as Shadow's best efforts on recovering from those breaks not going to be enough as this map is starting to close out here, and Aero going to put themselves at match point here.
All right, pretty handy point for Aero, and now for Shadow. Next pick has to be very wise. But here's my question: I don't know if Coordination 3 might be the best pick. Like, again, it's Coordination, but it is also pretty physical being at your timing hell. Well, I would say round timing hell. So it does have some of those density aspects as well. So I'm not really too sure on what I'll feel about Coordination 3. But looking at the other two possible picks, Technical 3, I totally see Technical 3.
Yeah, this is the most coordination-ish tech you can get. And also, like I say, with a lot of Imperial mapping, it's very free flow. Lots of LN bursts, lots of shields, it's just pretty much like streamy-based LN almost, but with lots of releases as well, lots of snappings, so pretty much everything being thrown at you here. And this is gonna be a bit interesting. This is the final pick of the match until we either crown a winner or we see a tiebreaker. And that will be the second tiebreaker in a row, I believe, because the last match, which was no, I'm getting things wrong. I think I'm thinking of all the way back. Last round, Anthony versus Jose. There was a tiebreaker there, so potentially could see back-to-back, but we're gonna have to see Shadow's A game here pull off here.
We will have to see. And of course, off the intro, they do have that pretty hefty start with that 99.7. Pretty decent accolade, but of course, still subject to change. Again, this map, like, it is 200 bait pretty much, I'll say, with just looking at all these brutal snappings, all those 1.6, all those 1.8, even 1.12s I think I had seen as well. But again, we do have OD 6.3 to compensate, so misses are going to be very crucial in a pick like this, and Aero catching up their accuracy right before the first third. And here we are heading into, I would not really say Kia, there isn't really a subject Kia in a pick like this, but Shadow, actually I did not catch that, finding a drop, which Aero does have the lead, putting Shadow in the danger zone as they do get into the Ki, but with that accuracy drop on the side of Aero, coming from some of those scatters and rolls, it's still flickering towards both players, and as I say that, Aero going to be finding that drop, going to be switching their way over to the side of Shadow, so going to be giving them back the lead, and a pretty comfy one at that. I think this is what Shadow needed. Just a drop on the side of Aero, maybe to try to keep their consistency up. But we still have the final third of the map.
We still have time left to go in this map, and right now Aero receiving a pretty bad end of this dual-edged sword here, as they do pick up a break here, and heading into the final quarter, Shadow being ahead by 12,000 points, almost 13,000, as more of these staggered releases come raining down. And the more this map continues on, the more Shadow just solidifies this lead, as despite Aero's best efforts of trying to climb that accuracy back, Shadow is climbing theirs even higher. And I mean, there's not really much map left to go, and just with these closing flam releases, ladies and gentlemen, Shadow GM is knocking on Tiebreaker's door.
Here we go, and look at that difference on the 200 count, 26-3. Even if there was a few more misses on the side of Shadow, it still could have went over to them. But here we are, the tiebreaker. And, well, if you haven't seen it, this is your perfect opportunity to see it. It's a very fun tiebreaker.
Yes.
Containing everything.
MSG. Are you hungry for some MSG?
I'm starving for MSG.
I need some MSG.
And you can even hear in this, you can hear the M's, the S's, the G's.
S. G. And for the second time in a row, we are headed to a tiebreaker situation.
And it's going to be pretty hype, so... yeah, it's going to be pretty hype.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of... there's going to be a ton of emotional damage for both of these players, as this map... this is going to be something, because not only are these players fighting for the crown, they're also fighting for their tournament lives here, because like I mentioned, this is a loser's bracket match. A loser goes home, and winner moves on to the losers round of 16 next weekend. Boy!
So both players just pretty much having their heads over water here as they get through this final 6-minute onslaught. And I think people have to keep on to their combo. I do believe it's around 8k is the full combo range. So, will any of these players hit it? Consistency will have to be high if they do want to advance. Will it go to the consistency player, or will it go towards the more accuracy player? But we'll have to see. And here we go, the first M's.
Just a friendly reminder that if you are not a player in this tournament, you can sign up for the Ordeal in Illusion. And if you have what it takes to play a map like this, submit your score by uploading a screenshot and sending your replay for a chance to win 33 United States dollars.
Absolutely, and again, a bit more on the coordination side, but again, still having that density, well, it's pretty much your wild card, I say, for a tiebreaker. And coming out the first area does lead over towards the side of Shadow, but not by much. So again, this is 5 minutes, so we are probably bound to see some misses happen, and even seeing some of those shields as well intact. Like, it's just really some of those choke points that can get the players off.
Yeah, there are lots of shields hidden around this map. Some of these releases aren't too bad to nail, but then once you hit that tempo increase near the final third of the map, that's where definitely things can be a lot more risky and potentially missing. And also, not to mention, there are also a lot of tricky, like you saw there, some of those LN bursts, like kind of stream like LN. That can also be a room for error if you are not careful enough. But right now, these players, both on an FC run and very, very close at about a tenth of percentage off.
So it is pretty much down to the wire, but we're only for the first third of the map. And especially as the ending does throw in a lot more of those density aspects as well. It'll be very interesting to see how both these players do duke it out. But here we are, the piano starts to get heavier, so you know what that means. Time for some of those shields.
You know, lots of these piano shields, and the more this progresses, the more shorter this lead gets. Shadow is picking up a hefty amount of 200s and 300s on these shields, but as we head into a bit of a out of the piano, a little bit of a build up here, and a bit of a technical flammy section here, and none of these players phased by it at all.
That's a pretty nasty 50 on the roll on the side of Shadow, but the accuracy is still tied by both players. But
yeah,
it is traded back. That was
traded back again.
Okay, triple trade on the side of technical areas that both players are struggling on, but at the end is going to be Aero having a combo advantage and the accuracy advantage as well at the halfway point. And just judging how dense this map gets near the ending as well, this could be in their favor.
Yeah, but as we head into a bit of a breakcore drum and bass section here, as the amen break kicks in here, Shadow does have a room of opportunity to gain back some of this accuracy, but we're gonna have to see some breaks coming from Aero pretty soon. This is, I'm pretty sure, 3 or 4 misses on the side of Shadow, not traded back, and we need to see something from Aero if Shadow wants a shot to still be in this tournament. But they keep on finding breaks. I think that consistency component is really starting to wear off for them as the increase in tempo shows up here.
The BPM is starting to slowly move up a lot more. You're seeing more of those shields that Aero's just thriving off of. Like, actually, but both players getting a drop in the same area. All bets are off. Is going to be that final sprint to the finish line. But with Aero, that 10k point lead, they do have that early start heading into the final quarter of the map where you're going to be seeing a lot more of those density areas rile in.
Yeah, and 10,000 points headed into the final section, and a little bit of a release-oriented section. Lots of coordination involved, so potentially Aero could find a room for error here, as we have known that the release is not as strong compared to Shadow, and there are some 200s being dropped here, but Shadow slider breaks yet again. The consistency really starting to run out. Maybe you can think that stamina component is really starting to get the best of them, but the tempo increase comes in, and here we go. Final section of the map here. A little bit of a full LN here, and Aero, as the density picks up here, Aero really thriving just off of that combo alone. Not looking to give up anything in favor of Shadow. 11,000 points now. I think we're going to have to see 2 misses on the side of Aero if Shadow wants a chance. But as more breaks pick up from Shadow, that lead will just increase even more. And Aero has been just absolutely ripping this ending apart at its densest part yet. And as the map closes out, Aero is going to take it.
Uncle Roger proved Aero is going to be, as you said, going to be taking it, and they're going to be getting the victory into the round of 16. So well done to both players. A very close match. And
yeah, that was insanely close.
Exactly. Like looking at it, the PA, the difference on the PA, the 200 count, very similar. It was just that consistency side of Shadow that unfortunately caught up to them.
Yeah, but unfortunately, with that, that will be the end of the journey for Shadow GM. They put up a valiant effort in this tournament, but unfortunately, there can only be one winner. And Aero going to be your winner of this match and will be punching their ticket into the losers round of 16. I don't know if their opponent has been decided yet. I think we will be switching to the bracket where we can see, but yeah, you can see right now the overview on how the match went. And with that, we can see Arrow's opponent pretty soon. And also, that will be our last match on this Saturday. And as we look, yeah, it's going to be Dark Mewtwo next week against Arrow. That is going to be a match you do not want to miss out.
Yep, so keep your eyes peeled out for that match. And what match do we have tomorrow?
Yeah, that will be it for this Saturday. We are going to be taking a very long break until we're back with Iran versus Rift OU at 6 UTC Sunday. So we will see you tomorrow for our next and final set of matches for this round of 32 weekend. But for now, I've been Arasani. Nightcore, anything to close off the stream with?
As you said earlier in the tiebreaker, don't forget to get your Order Illusion in. You want that $33? Then go get it.
Yep. Alrighty. Thank you, and we will see you all later. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
What? That's not even ramen. That's soba noodle. A completely different type of noodle. Hiya. Uncle